Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. So we're waiting for other attendees to log in. Would like to ask you guys to join our poll for today. So the question is, what are two words that best describe how you're feeling these days? So you can join the poll by using the QR code on the screen to access it. And then you can type, or you can also type the URL and ID, or you can check out the chat box to visit the link and copy the ID from there. All right. So a huge chunk of us are feeling tired, anxious, but also excited.
I put in tired, so I'm probably one of the few tired ones over here.
Yeah.
I put in tired and
lifted.
I put in tired and excited, and I'm really glad to see that there are a lot of other people who are excited today.
Yep. I think we have a nice balance of emotions today.
Yep. All right. Thanks for joining, everyone. So we're closing the poll. Well, actually, we're going to keep this open, and then let's see again if there are other emotions later. All right. So, right. Welcome everyone to the Startup Success Building Your Team's Mental Wellbeing. This event is in partnership with MindFi. So before we start, let's just go over a few rules. So firstly, we invite you to join the discussion. Please feel free to use the chat box to share your insights or comments about the discussion that our panelists are having. Secondly, questions are very much welcome. So please just type them in the Q&A widget you have on your screen so that our moderator and panelists can access them. For those joining over live stream on Facebook, do send us your questions via the comment section as well. There might be some delay, I think, for the technical transfer on Facebook, but we'll try to get the questions in as well. Lastly, this webinar is recorded. We will be sending you the link so you can access and view it again. Now, I'd like to hand over to our moderator for today, E27 CEO Mohan Bilani.
Thanks, Lyra. Hi, everyone. Glad that everyone can join us today. So welcome to today's webinar, which is titled Startup Success, Building Your Team's Mental Wellbeing. And this is in partnership with MindFi. So my name is Mohan. I'm the CEO of E27. And I think mental well-being has been something that has been personally on top of mind for me, but also the entire organization, right? As soon as the pandemic hit, and as soon as we were not able to be physically present with people, it was a realization that, hey, mental well-being is something that we need to be mindful of. And over time, this became part of our organization. For this event, especially for today, right, what we aim to do is to talk not just about the importance of ensuring the mental well-being of our teams, but why it's important that mental health gets the support, not just at the individual level, but at an organizational level, and ideally in a structured manner. So I want to share some numbers first. In Singapore alone, right, so if you're a company with about 50 employees, and let's say that maybe 6 of your employees are experiencing unmanageable stress. So overall, right, this will translate to as much as 3,300 days of lost productivity due to things like absenteeism and presenteeism. And it will actually cost your company, right, just over $500,000 on an annual basis. So you can actually go to MindFi's website, scroll down on the homepage, and you can actually calculate this value for your respective organizations on your own, just to see, right, how big of an effect mental health or unmanaged mental health issues can have in your organizations. On the other hand, right, there's also a study by Gartner that reported that employees who actually have mental health support show a 21% increase in productivity. So these are just examples and case studies that I wanted to share to illustrate that our team members' mental well-being has a direct impact on the performance of the company. And performance-wise, it could be productivity, but also at the end of the day, revenue and cost. Right? So the question now is, given that the startup ecosystem is so fast-paced and aggressive, and plus we've kind of added, an additional amount of stress from working from home, and then with the current uncertainty in the global situation, right? So how are we as leaders supporting our teams? And how does actively ensuring that mental well-being for our team members at an organizational level impact startup success? So what we've done today is we've invited a great panel of speakers to share with us practices and insights that they've had on an individual level and also on an organizational level. So I would really like to welcome Anita, Michelle, Jeff to today's session. Maybe we can do a quick introduction. We might want to start with Anita first. Would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Anita from MindFi. I am a psychologist and counselor and also the Chief Wellbeing Officer at MindFi. And I'm really passionate about well-being for everybody. And I think going through corporates is a great way to do it.
Great. Michelle, would you like to go next?
Hi, everybody. Very happy to be here today. My name is Michelle. I'm the CEO of Pointstar Consulting. We are a cloud computing consulting company with a presence across ASEAN. And yeah, happy to be here today to talk more about what we can do on an organizational level for mental well-being.
Great. And Jeff joins us all the way from China. So Jeff, welcome to the session. Please share a bit more about yourself.
Hi everyone. I'm the founder and CEO of PestNet. We are a B2B SaaS company. Yeah.
So a big congratulations to Jeff on securing the unicorn status not too long ago. I'm sure that must have added a lot more stress to your mental health.
Yes, a lot of anxious and stress. Yeah.
So let's dive right in, right? Okay, we all have happy faces today, but jokes aside, I'm sure each of you have had your own challenges in dealing with mental well-being. I'd like to hear from each of you. Like, what have you all done recently to actually protect your mental health? Maybe Michelle, you would like to go first?
Okay, sure. So I think definitely mental health and mental well-being was something that I wasn't too particular about or too mindful about in the past. When we entered the whole COVID pandemic situation last year, in the beginning, it was still something that everybody wasn't too aware about. But as time went on and, the stress and the stress of work and your personal life just keep piling up, then at a certain point, I also felt that, I just felt overwhelmed at a certain point of time, right? I am just some background. I'm a mother of two very young children. My youngest just turned 2 years old. So, terrible twos. We are, we are also, in the midst of moving house. So apparently that's the one most stressful event just below divorce, according to an article I read. Yeah. And yeah, I think within the company also, we have been growing quite aggressively. The last year, we had a lot of changes to make because of the COVID situation. So I think it was all piling up. I think for me, how I manage it is, first of all, to acknowledge that there is a very big change that has happened, right? And really to take I do make sure that I take mini breaks within the day. For me, it's all about compartmentalization, not letting the work and the personal combine together and then overwhelm me. So that is something that I very consciously do, that from this time to this time is work time. So I'm in work mode, and then once I get home, I'm in mommy mode, and I just think about and deal with those things. One thing that I've also actively done is I realize it helps for me on a monthly basis. I do take a step back, take stock of what is happening and discuss the issues that I'm facing. I do this via mainly two avenues. I do have a group of fellow entrepreneurs that I meet up with once a month for us to discuss this together, and just reflect. And on a personal basis, of course, for me personally, I'm part of a prayer group, so I do that once a month as well, just to reflect personally what's happening. So I think taking stock, coming to terms with things, processing things gives me a better sense of control and therefore lowers my stress levels. Yeah, so that personally is how I handle it.
Okay, great. So you've actually answered a follow-up question I wanted to have, which was really the triggers, right? And in your case, you mentioned there was the personal side. There was, of course, kids and the house moving. But then on the professional side also, we did mention that there was a significant amount of transition in the company, plus also growth. While they were positive, they definitely had an impact on the mental health side, right?
Yeah.
Jeff, could you share your views on this question with us? Like, how have you been personally, handling and taking care of your own mental well-being?
Yeah. Yes, actually, this was, I would say I into this kind of get aware of this topic last year, actually during pandemic, that mental well-being is actually a thing. Yeah, I mean, of course, previously I heard of it, but only since last year I really study this, and because also as our company, they are also have been talks on this. So just give some context. Yeah, as maybe some of the audience here as well, and Michelle and everyone here, definitely, yeah, running a startup is stressful. And for PestNet, we have about 1,000+ people globally now, across different time zones. So at any time zone, at any time, you can imagine there are fires to put out. So, but I guess for me, I think I'm still learning to to so-called manage the stress. And usually what I did over the last couple years, I will try to do exercise during free time, to exercise whenever sweat out. I feel actually the whole body just feel a bit refreshed, like a mini restart. Because I think there's a study, there's science behind it, that where release, I don't know, oxygen, like that make you feel just your mind refreshed. The other thing, also sleep well. I find that whenever I don't have enough sleep, I'm definitely very moody, very easily get pissed off. When I sleep well, last night I slept for 7 hours plus. I need 7 hours. Today I'm more cheerful today. So yeah, enough sleep is important. At least for me, it works for me. Yeah, and actually starting earlier this year, through a friend referral, actually I start having almost like a weekly or bi-weekly talking to a counselor. Actually, it helps as well. Engaging a counselor, just talk to her for anything, and then yeah, help me kind of think through stuff. Because for me, I find that I'm the type that I need to talk to someone in order to think clearer. So these are the few methods that I use to help me with my mental well-being.
Jeff, you mentioned earlier that you started to take this a bit more seriously in the last 1.5, 2 years, that period, right? Were there like specific triggers? Was there a personal issue? Was there a professional issue that kind of drove you to think through this a bit more?
Yes. Because we have, actually, I would say, relatively speaking, our Western counterpart, like our colleagues, my colleagues in UK, in Europe, and in US, definitely are more aware, because my HR head from the West, my US Europe office mentioned about mental well-being. A few employees are actually feeling, so we should do something about it. That was kind of the first time it is on my corporate agenda. Right. So and we look into it, and that's why the more we learn, the more this is a real serious problem. In fact, our insurance, our medical benefits in my Western colleague, they cover mental wellness as well. And last, we have a mental month, and we invite speaker come to our office to share. And in fact, now, as of now, I think got 1 or 2 employees actually taking leave because of to really take some time off. So this became on my agenda since last year. Yeah.
Right, got it. Okay, great. And Anita, for you, you've been somewhat in this sector or space for a really long time, right?
Yeah.
So in your view, right, how have you been personally dealing with this?
How have I been personally dealing with my
With
mental health?
your personal mental health, in terms of how you protecting your personal mental health and wellness?
So for me, as Chief Wellbeing Officer at MindFi, I also try and work with the organization to have a daily gratitude practice. So every day during our company calls, we share one thing we're grateful for. So I think this has been a really great way to bond within the company and to get everybody in the company to think about it. And then I also practice it on my own at the end of every day, just noting down 3 things that I'm grateful for. And on the weekends, every Saturday, I try and do a different activity to give myself some time off, to give myself something to look forward to every week. So it might be going to the museum, it might be getting some exercise. I think like what Jeffrey and Michelle mentioned, just sleep and exercise, getting your basic well-being down is really important. And I think at MindFi, what we try and do is we try and educate people to give them the tools to understand how to build their own well-being program. And that's really what the app is about. It's an app that guides you, gives you the tools, the resources, the assessments to create a well-being program that suits your needs and your lifestyle.
Michelle and Jeff, right? I think your organizations have been around for much more than 5 years right now. We were mentioning how we all kind of came from the garage together.
Yeah.
Was there a period in the last couple of years where you all saw like telltale signs, or you all saw issues or patterns in the organization that started to crop up, right? Where you started to realize, hey, mental health needs to be some sort of an organizational issue, and we kind of need to do something about it. I think, Jeff, you mentioned a bit, it was more from the HR side, right? From the US. But maybe Michelle, was there specific cases of maybe employee issues or stress, frustrations in the organization that you started, or even massive drops in productivity, right? That happened that led you to think, hey, I think the organization needs to think through this.
Yeah, so I think like I mentioned before, it was not something I'm very embarrassed to say, but it's not something that I really took very seriously before the whole COVID situation. I do believe that these issues have always been around. It's just that it has not been brought to the surface and it's not been obvious to the management. But only when we entered the whole COVID situation, where people were in lockdowns and they couldn't leave the house, I think that's where a lot of things bubbled up and came to the surface. But I think better late than never, right? That we are tackling this now. In terms of the triggers, I mean, what we saw that, just generally people interacting with each other. Of course, there are always going to be personality clashes. People don't really understand how the other person is working. And we saw these things escalate more often and to much higher levels when we went into the whole COVID situation. Very unfortunately, I think this is something that might be happening not just in my company. I'm sure a lot of companies experiencing this as well, that where your colleagues, especially those from overseas, from countries that are very badly affected, they are experiencing things like, their close family members might be getting sick, getting COVID. Quite a few of our colleagues have had their parents pass away very recently as well. And of course, these are very stressful, emotional events. I mean, I can't imagine that happening, putting myself in their shoes. And piling on top of that, right, we have like I mentioned, we have that work stress as well. So we were actually in high growth mode last year. We kind of almost doubled the team size last year, and so the stress of more work also piles on, added to the fact that randomly some of my team members were getting COVID themselves, so they would be down for 2 weeks. So there's a lot of doubling up, people having to cover, doing extra work to cover for people who are down. So I think all of this, when I talk about it, even now, I find that it's sounds very overwhelming, right? And essentially, I think that was where we right at the beginning, for me, the very specific trigger point was when I realized I had 3 of my staff, without me knowing, had to actually get professional help for depression and anxiety.
Mm.
And that's where I took a step back and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing as the leader of this company, right? To make sure that my guys don't reach to that point where they feel that they need to go and get professional help.
Wait,
So
how did that happen?
yeah.
How did you realize that?
So my HR manager, one thing good about her, she's very good at digging out information from people. Right? She very kepo the way we say in Singapore. So she reported back to me. She's like, oh, did you know that this person A and person B and person C actually have started seeing a psychiatrist? They have actually gone to get professional help because of unmanageable anxiety levels and some of them depression. And so I was very taken aback by that, and I felt very guilty as the CEO of the company that, first of all, I wasn't aware of this, and second of all, I haven't been doing anything actively to prevent them to reach that stage. Right. Yeah. So I think that was really a key trigger point for me to say that I need to take this more seriously, and we need to put some programs in place.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it similar for you, Jeff, or was it a bit because your organization is so much larger, right? How was it? What were the trigger points for you to start taking this?
Same. Yeah, very, very similar to Michelle. So because I believe this already happened in the last couple of years, but during COVID it kind of arises and came to my HR as well. And then my HR told me that there are a couple of employees actually, especially our Western counterpart, they have been quarantined at home for quite a while, having issues as well. Very similar to what Michelle mentioned. Also, some of them during this period, some of their parents, some of their loved one that passed away, really traumatizing. Yeah, very similar.
So, interestingly, you mentioned the US side, right? But on the Asia side, was there similar things that you all noticed? Especially since you have a large China office, right?
I would say I only have data point on maybe on my Chinese colleague. I would say on China will be slightly different. First of all, mental wellness is still not so common here. It's not so common in China, at least. And yeah, it's just different. They don't, at least in China, so I don't this problem, but I believe some of our employees do exhibit some of these, maybe experience this as well. Yeah.
And once you all started to realize this issue, right, what did you all start doing about it? Were there initial steps that you all did? Were there programs you put in place? Or how did it start?
And share this. So yeah, initially we engage some professional, like a speaker, come to share with us during our company town hall, to share with us, have a session. And actually, I remember that session was very and after that, we do like kind of a open hotline. If anyone that need help, just feel free to come to us. And then we also look for technologies that help with this. And yeah, one of it being we are a customer of MindFi, so we how they can, like an app or tool that can help them to not only during like this kind of session that can share, but any technology that can help them. And we use someone like MindFi. Yeah.
Right. Michelle, what did you all do on your end? When you started to realize this problem?
Yeah, so I think similar to Jeff, we decided that we needed to put something in place. Our first wave of doing something was just very simple. We basically asked the HODs to please keep a lookout, have regular check-ins with your team. But we realized after a while that wasn't very effective, because sometimes people are not comfortable telling their supervisors or their managers what is actually happening. And so that's where we also, seek we were working together with MindFi as well. And the reason why I thought that was a good idea was because it's essentially an app, right? And how we specifically did it with MindFi is that we had like sort of a we call it mastermind challenge. So
Mm.
it's a game, there were prizes to be won and everything. But along the way, in order for you to participate in that, they had to answer questionnaires and use the Mindfy app and things like that. And what came back to me as a manager was that was very useful was all these data points. So the great thing is that Mindfy keeps everything anonymous, right? Which allows our team to be comfortable, really sharing how they feel, and but allows me on a high level to see, have a feel of what is the situation in the company. I mean, are we above the acceptable levels or below the acceptable levels, things like that. And the second thing that we realized that was causing a lot of stress between the team, which I mentioned before, was personality clashes. They didn't really know how to work together well, and then you put them in a situation where they cannot even meet each other, then it just gets escalated, right? So for us, we also decided to send a team for what we call something called anagram training, which is a personality, just a way for you to understand the different personality types,
Right.
and why people work this in certain ways. I think the main thing that it did, and I feel was very effective, was that it gave everybody a different perspective that, oh, actually there are different personality types, and they're not trying to make my life difficult. They are actually, that's how they view it, right? And once we have that common understanding that everybody is actually just trying to do their job, right? I think people are a lot more receptive, a lot more understanding, and things don't get escalated so quickly. So the combination of these two that we've done over the past few months, we did see quite a big change in terms of the way the team worked together and the escalations that we had to deal with on the HR side. Yeah.
Very interesting.
So yeah, but of course it's an ongoing process. We have to continue working on this for the mental wellness. Yeah.
Yeah. Anita, is this something that you notice with organizations, right? Where it feels like something drastic has to happen before the leaders start to take notice and take action. Have you like in your work in this space, right? Is that a common theme that you've noticed?
It is so common. In fact, when Michelle was sharing her story, I was thinking that this is the story I keep hearing over and over again. And in fact, back when I was working in a hospital, all the cases that I saw were just really severe cases of depression and anxiety, when in reality, there is so much that you can do that's preventive. If you know enough about it, you can build healthy habits so that you don't reach stages of depression and anxiety. Or even if you are depressed or anxious, you can do early interventions so that you address it early on and it doesn't escalate. And that's actually what we try and do in the Mindfy app. So we do assessments, so we can measure your well-being levels and we can screen you for depression risk, or we can also assess that you are depressed based on what your score is. And if you are at depression risk, we actually make recommendations for exercises that you can do to help you get out of the depression risk zone. And even if you are depressed, we also have self-care programs within the app. And they actually have an efficacy rate of about 66%. So 66% of our depressed users, after going through our self-care programs, managed to reach a state of positive well-being. And these assessments they come from the World Health Organization. So they're scientifically validated assessments. So we do have a 66% success rate with our self-care programs, but for the people who need a little bit more, the 34% who need that extra touch, we also provide 1:1 care by connecting our users with therapists via our platform. So as a psychologist and counselor, I do want to share that there's nothing wrong with coming to see us. Like Jeffrey also mentioned, it's just a great space, great avenue to chat with somebody. You don't have to be severely anxious or depressed. And the earlier you go and talk to somebody, or the earlier you take part in a self-care program, the better your mental health is going to be, the more you can maintain a level of mental wellness and just feeling really good.
Yeah. Michelle and Jeff, I'm curious. Sometimes leaders can implement programs, right? And then we think in our head, right, that, this will go in a great way and our employees will love it. And then it can totally backfire. Like I'm remembering a lot of things I've done that has completely backfired. Did you guys have this sense, right? Was the reception to all these things that you all were doing to mental health, was it well received? Did people take it in a way, in a positive way, or do you think people were shy and not very open to it? How was the initial reception to all these programs?
Yeah, maybe I can answer this first. It really depends. Different culture, difference. As I mentioned, at least from my own experience in our global offices, I would say in the West, in US, Europe, they are definitely more receptive to this. This is more common. In fact, if we do not have it, is not good. I mean, they will require us to have the infrastructure, the ecosystem, the technology to support it. In Asia, relatively speaking, I think still in terms of the awareness or the if you say shy or anything, or is a bit behind in terms of our Western counterpart.
So to clarify, right, when you introduced all these programs, was there a sense of nonchalance, like, or people like, oh, okay, nice to have, or was it more like people were quietly using it and maybe loving it, but they were not very vocal and open about it?
I would say people are, we do look at some of the stats on the program, or like, for example, like the MindFi usage. I do see, we do see the increase in usage. People are using. Yeah, I don't think they actively say that I am a proud user of this technology, but I think we do see people using it. Yeah.
Michelle? And for context, Michelle, just to make sure I get this right? You have teams in Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia, is that correct?
And Pakistan.
And now Pakistan. Okay, great.
Yeah. So I think, I think what Jeff brought up was a very good point. I mean, you have different people in different countries. The culture is different. For me, obviously my team is not as widespread as Jeff's team. We are all generally in Asia. So I think for Asia, culturally people do have, sometimes they're a bit shy to say that I need help. For mental wellness, right? Which is one of the reasons why, I mentioned just now, I thought MindFi was a good fit because it was quite anonymous. Again, looking at the stats, I think we had 75% take up rate in terms of when we rolled it out to the whole team. I also was a bit I was not say skeptical, but I wasn't sure what to expect when I first rolled it out, right? Because it's basically, I didn't know whether people would be like, this is waste my time now, or whatever, that was this, right? But actually for the people who actually came forward and gave me personal feedback, they were telling me that they're very happy and grateful that the company is taking into consideration their mental wellness, and that we are actually doing something to make sure that they are supported during this time, because not every company is doing that. So although I thought that there would be I actually performed much better than I thought it would, right? So you'll be surprised in terms of what people are looking for right now as employees, in terms of the support that they expect from their companies.
Right. And Anita, on your end, right, like, do you notice a change in trends, right? Like, on one hand, like, organizations want to implement policies, but are you also noticing like there's more bottom-up requests for people saying, hey, we want these kind of tools in organizations? Or are you noticing that like employees and teams are generally much more open and receptive to having these things, and okay being vulnerable to admitting using them regularly?
I think it goes both ways. So we get a lot of requests from HR departments whom we typically sell to, but then sometimes maybe we'll speak at events, or we'll chat with people and they find out what MindFi is about and they love the idea, and then they proactively reach out to connect us with the HR department. So we're seeing it from both sides.
Okay, great. So now moving forward, right, especially for, my view of this is that mental well-being is not something that you do as a one-off or a 3 months project, right? And then when your employees are in a supposedly happier place, you stop the program, right? In my view, there needs to be a structure and plan. So Anita, like if an organization is really thinking through this, how to go about doing this,
Mhm.
how would you get them to start thinking about this, incorporating in the organization, having a conversation with maybe even senior management, like what kind of resources, what kind of tools, what kind of like
Mhm.
fundings to put into play? Like where do you start?
Great question. So we like to start off by chatting with either the leadership or the HR to find out what some of their pain points are, maybe from the engagement surveys, maybe from the pulse surveys. And based on that, we usually build a 1-year well-being program. And on different months, we cover different themes. It could be resilience, it could be mindfulness. The schedule of themes is a little bit different from every company because we customize it based on what the company needs. So it's a very personalized solution for your company.
Mm.
And we run care at 3 different levels. So we have the self-care programs that you have on the app. We have the one-to-one therapist programs for the one-to-one counseling sessions. And we've launched a new feature recently where we do group sessions. So I think this has been really successful so far. Because I think in Asia, a lot of us are still a little bit shy about stepping forward.
Right.
So if we have group sessions, we keep it very anonymous. People feel like there isn't that much attention on them. It's kind of a group setting where they're also anonymous, where they can make contact with the therapist, get their questions answered, get that really personalized care. So our programs have these 3 forms of care for the users. It also involves educational seminars, lunchtime talks, and they're very much customized for our corporate clients. So let us know what you want and we can create something for you. And like you said, structured programs, we usually work 1 year at a time to design programs that address your pain points.
Right. And for Michelle and Jeff, how are you all thinking about this moving forward? Are you all like potentially looking at equipping your teams with certain tools? Are you all looking at allocating some amount of funding or additional resources to make taking care of your employees' mental well-being a core part of the organization's focus? How does it look like moving forward for you all? Maybe Michelle, you want to go first?
Sure. So actually when we started out this whole program, we took our budget for team bonding activities, that everybody thought they could do before COVID. And then when we realized that we had nothing to do with it, right, we actually reallocated that to this kind of programs. So it was actually a little bit of a reactionary kind of process, right? But having seen the impact that it has had, as well as the fact that people are saying that we this really might be the new normal, right? We really might not be going back to where we were before COVID, right? Definitely, as somebody managing the company, I will be looking at budgeting, having a mental well-being budget, right? And then mental wellness budget for next year, right? So that we can put something a lot more structured in place. I totally agree with you, Mohan. This is not something that we want to do as a one-off and on an ad hoc thing, right? But because you care about the mental well-being of the employees first, but of course the effects is that productivity, being able to get projects done better on time and things like that, all that also adds on to the more reasons why we should take this more seriously. Yeah, so that's my take on it.
Jeff?
Yep. Same. We're exactly similar to Misha as well. Have been reactive. Now we definitely want to be proactive on this. Part of our whole well-being and benefits as well. I think this is a real kind of experience it myself, because running a startup, the kind of actually mental well-being is actually to my team internally, especially I would say apply to everyone, but actually especially like our sales team, how our mind work, how we keep our mind work. Top salesperson is just like the top athlete. The top athlete in the game, they will visualize, they will make sure all their mental state is at the most optimal state. Not just, I would say moving forward, I look at this not just mental well-being as a as a preventive kind of action, but if we do it well, it should improve overall productivity, make everyone perform better, and even.
Yep. I really like how you took the sports team analogy on this, right? And it makes so much of sense. You know, if you want to perform at your best, and I mean, just nicely, we saw that at the Olympics recently, right? It's not just about physical capability or muscle strength, but it's also about being in the right mental state. Before I go into Q&A, you know, we really have a couple of questions coming in, right? I wanted to pose one final question from my end. At what point, right, do we have this balance where employees also should take a bit of responsibility on their side? So pre-COVID, right, I'll give you a simple example, right? You know, I would have situations where maybe some team members would spend the whole weekend doing nothing or clubbing or basically having unhealthy lifestyles, and then coming to Monday in a groggy and unhappy state, right? And so in your view, right, like where is the balance, right? Like how much should employees be responsible also to a certain extent for their own mental well-being? And how much you think should organizations be supporting them with all the tools, processes, and resources? How do you draw that balance? Maybe Anita, you want to try take a step at that first?
Yeah. Well, I think at the end of the day, everybody needs to take responsibility for their own well-being, but organizations can help by giving them tools and resources. And I think a big thing is education. So talks about it, letting people understand that, hey, there are all these things you can do. It's within your hands. And education is a big way to get employees to take ownership of their well-being.
Michelle?
Yeah, so I agree. At the end of the day, mental well-being is a very personal thing, right? Sometimes especially for the organization, we are only aware of so much of what you're going through. There's a whole other part of your life that we are not aware of. So I think they must want to do it. You can't force anybody to go and take action to improve their mental well-being. So I think for me, I definitely want to make sure that I have a support system available, a structure available to allow my team members to get to reach out for help if they need it, right? But that decision of reaching out and taking the steps really needs to come from them. Nobody can force them to do it.
Jeff?
Yeah. I mean, Sam, actually, in fact, I'm looking at the Q&A. One of it, one asked centralized or decentralized agenda or wider scope. I just want this point and overall as well. I think any initiative has to start from the top. Like if the top leadership team doesn't treat it as a real thing, then like yes, it will slowly kind of die off. So to me, I personally do believe in mental well-being. This whole, in fact, even before all this, I read a lot of psychology book about Adler. Like personally, I believe that you can change the future. I do think like all this what Michelle exactly the same, and in order to really make real change in the organization, it has to start from the leader ourselves to set the example and to do it.
Yeah. So I hope whoever will ask that question, because the person is anonymous, right? I think in summary, I think Jeff's point, because I think you were cutting out a bit, is fundamentally it has to start from the top, and it has to be something that's taken seriously from the top. If not, it will die off over time. Michelle and Anita, do you all want to take a step at the question asked by this anonymous person? Are you seeing a more centralized or more decentralized trend in how organizations approach employee mental well-being? And is it just a HR agenda, or should it be a wider scope agenda now?
I think that well-being programs, we've noticed they tend to work better if the leadership is involved, if the leadership really believes in it. Very often the HR team still runs it, but I think it needs to come from the top to really build a culture of prioritizing well-being in an organization.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree with both Anita and Jeff. I think if the leadership does not set the tone that this is something that is okay for us to be talking about, and this is something that we should be prioritizing on all the levels down, right? Then I think that's really important for it to be effective. But for us, we do encourage people as well within the team, no matter what level you are, to speak up. If you feel that certain things are not really beneficial for your mental wellness, the way things are run, or certain things that are happening in the company. Yeah, we do encourage everybody to speak up about it.
Okay. We have a good question from Crystal. And the question is basically, so she thanks everyone for the insightful sharing. And the question is, what are some success metrics that can be used to measure effectiveness of well-being initiatives in an organization? Who would like to take a stab at that?
I think this sounds like Anita question.
I'll answer it first, but then I think maybe Michelle and Jeffrey can add on at the end. So we use the World Health Organization's Wellbeing Index, and we get our users to do it at monthly intervals. And we actually get a tangible score measuring well-being, and it's averaged and anonymized. So we get a sense of what the well-being levels are like within an organization. Now, this score can be banded. It can show if the average well-being is in a poor well-being state, if it's in a depression risk state, if it is positive well-being, if it's above average or below average. So we get a sense of the pulse of the employee well-being and where it is relative to the average person, and if it's any risk factors linked to it. And we've actually found that with 1 month's usage of the app, employee well-being actually can improve by an average of 15%. So that's one of the great things about using our app. Other ways that we measure improvement is that we also measure stress levels. So we can see if stress levels also improve, and we also can break down the well-being into social well-being, mental well-being, sense of purpose, so that we can provide customized solutions to kind of address each of the pain points. And again, we measure on regular intervals and we can quantify it. And I think quantified well-being data is one thing, but I think it also translates to employee productivity, absenteeism at work, healthcare claims that I think Michelle and Jeffrey would better be able to talk about.
Yeah. Are there anything on the organizational side that you all specially measure for the effectiveness, Jeff and Michelle?
So I don't really know whether I can talk about this because it's very new for me, actually. To be very frank, I'm figuring it out. This is something that we just started. So I think what we really depend a lot on is the data that we get from the Mindfy app for me to get a pulse of what's going on. But definitely how I see on a very practical view is how many escalation cases you brought up to HR. So basically, if things cannot be resolved within the team, they escalate it to HR to get senior management in to resolve it. So how many times that happens? I think also generally, like what Anita said, absenteeism, also, employee turnover. If things get out of control, you will see people like, just say, I give up, I can't do this anymore, and I just want to leave. So I think these are, I would say, the practical data points that I would be looking at. But then again, it's something that I'm definitely learning more about as I go along. And yeah, it could change in the future.
Okay. We've got a few more questions streaming in, so I want to jump on to some of them. This one again from an anonymous attendee, right? How do you engage regional remote employees? And how do you promote inclusion and diversity? And this is kind of related to another question by Ciaran Heron, which is how do you see mental health fitting into the broader diversity and inclusion discussion? Okay, so who would like to take a stab at that? I repeat, how do you engage regional remote employees? How to promote inclusion and diversity? And how does mental health fit into the broader diversity and inclusion discussion?
Yeah. Now maybe I try to answer this. The short answer is we are also still figuring out. But as just to share our Western counterpart, our US and Europe officers, our employees are still not returning to office yet. So because of the new Delta variant, I originally planned to open the office in September, and now I think most likely it will get delayed. So we haven't, because they haven't come back to the office yet. So a lot of some of the plans or our program, we haven't able to try it out yet. But on a high level, I think this related to another questions about global culture for our companies as we grow. I think mental well-being, I would say, is, if I were to view it, I will view it, yes, it's part of our global culture. I mean, mental well-being is one aspect. We definitely will start to be on our radar. That's something that can be measured as well. But it should still look at, every company is different. Like every company, their culture, your mission is different. It has to tie in with the overall company strategy or your type. Yeah, so that is my short answer to that.
Got it.
Can I chime in a little bit as well?
Yeah, go for it.
So we run app-based challenges through the Mindfy app. So I think Michelle at Pointstar was using it. So it's a way to keep employees connected through the app. So whether they are all working from home in Singapore or they're different countries, they can actually connect via mindfulness practices and challenges.
Yeah, so I was also going to just share with that our experience. So we did that Mindfy Mastermind Challenge where we group people up across, and no matter where you were in the region, people were grouped up across different countries to so-called, like, do this challenge together. So it's like really making a game out of it, making it fun. So I think definitely using something like an app, which is, you're not restricted to borders or anything like that. You can use it anytime you want, no matter what time zone you're in. Definitely is helpful. For me, I think another, it was a very good question, because culturally, what you do in Singapore might not work in Indonesia, right? It just might be not suitable country. So for me, I do have, of course, in each country, I do have the senior management that I work closely with. And it's something that I do regularly to really get feedback. I think feedback is the key thing. Like, are we doing it right? Is it effective? Or, is it just, do they see it as a waste of time? So that we just tweak along the way. Like what Jeff said, we really are just discovering this. We're trying to figure things out along the way. And I think this is going to be a long process before I can say that we got something quite solid down.
Great. Okay, wonderful. Actually, we're just in time, right, to wrap up the panel session and hand it back to the MC. But before we go, right, any final closing comment that you want to share with the audience here? Any tips or advice that you would like to give with respect to helping companies, figure out if they want to kickstart this process of implementing mental well-being policies or practices in the organization? What can they do? So any closing comments? Maybe we go one round. Anita, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'll just start by sharing that mental health can seem very intimidating. Sometimes you don't know what the solution is, but I think a great place to start is to just share your pain points, and we're always happy to see how we can help you address your pain points.
Michelle?
Yeah, so I think just a closing statement is if you're thinking about it, it probably is because something is happening that made you think about it, right? So just start something as small as just putting up a Google form to say that, hey, anybody who wants to reach out anonymously or can just fill out this Google form and somebody can get back to you, right? Something just as simple as that, not costing any money, is a small step in the right direction. So my take on it is just start if you're thinking about it, and it will evolve along the way.
And last but not least, Jeff?
Yes, similar. I think if you are, it is a good way to put it. If you are thinking about it, that means, yeah, maybe you are the target market. But like I myself, I was thinking how I came to this as well. But yeah, overall, yeah, I mean, there are definitely challenges in life, but overall, life is good. So yeah, yeah, I think well-being is important. Mental well-being is important, but in a broader scheme of things, we will continue to face many challenges in life. But yeah, we just have the courage and the optimism about the future.
Great. Okay, thanks, Anita, Michelle, and Jeff. I will hand it back to Lyra. All yours.
Okay, a huge thanks to our panelists and moderator for that discussion. Um, just to share as well, as mentioned earlier, this event is in partnership with MindFi. So MindFi is an Apple-featured mental health and wellness platform. You could download the app using that QR code that we posted on your screen. We will also be sending you the link to view this webinar again, as well as the link to MindFi download after this via email. So this event is the first of 2 that we will be holding with MindFi. So do watch out for further announcements on the second one. You could also, I'm just going to keep this screen for you guys. So if you're still downloading, you can also check out e27.co/events and sign up for an E27 account to start receiving the daily digest. That's where we'll get you updated on upcoming events in partnership with MindFi, as well as other Southeast Asia ecosystem events. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we hope to see you in the next ones. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Take care of your mental health this weekend.